guys, Martin here bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to take a look at the top 10 EZA TURs in the game now that we have had the new release of the AGL Cell and the STR Goku and Gohan. So I have to shuffle the list a little bit and see what we are looking like now in this fully post 10th anniversary meta. As always with my tier lists, you know I'm going to say the same thing every video, right? These are entirely based on my personal experience with the game. If you have maybe used a unit and had slightly better luck, like maybe, for example, we've got Janemba up on the page. Maybe Janemba always dodges for you 100% of the time, so you think he's better than I will place him on my list, then, you know, that is going to be what it is at the end of the day. I try and explain the reasonings for the placements in the video. I know a lot of people will literally just skip to the end to look at the actual 1 to 10 list and then comment without listening to any of the explanations, but I try and make the case for why I've put these units where they are. But I'm also very happy to admit and say at the beginning of the video that, again, it's based on my experience with the unit. Like, a unit might look really good on paper, and then every time I use them, they just sell for me for some reason or something like that, right? And then they're going to be lower on my list than they might be on someone else's. And at the end of the day, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that you should have the exact same list as me. And as I always say in these videos, if you think any of these placements are wrong or different to what you would put in your own personal top 10 list, do let me know down below in the comment section why you disagree and what your top 10 list would look like. So we're going to go ahead and jump in here. We'll talk about it at the very end, but as I now do with my tier lists, I've put a lot of the units in same color tiers if I think that they are interchangeable, but we'll talk about that once we get to the end. So at number 10 we have the Int Janemba. Now again, I mentioned him specifically, right, down to RNG. I had a lot of runs in the difficult content in the 10th anniversary where this guy did not dodge, especially after attacking, because remember, after he attacks he goes back to having only a 50% chance to dodge. And against some of the hardest hitting bosses, like, he was taking damage from normal attacks, especially in things like the Formidable Foes event, like where we're fighting the hardest hitting bosses. I had a few runs that were lost because this guy didn't dodge after he'd attacked. But obviously he is a solid unit, he's got a great link set. He can still be very good in the difficult content for sure. So, you know, I always say this as well when we're in these like lower parts of the list. Just because he's at number 10 on this particular list, right, doesn't mean he's bad, right? He's still the 10th best EZA or Super EZA unit in the game, and considering how many we have, like, being number 10 is not necessarily, you know, it doesn't mean he's bad at all, right? I do think in a lot of situations the LR is better. I think there might be some situations where this guy's better, but the LR having the ability, the extra ability to dodge supers, the ability to straight up nullify some super attacks as well. Like, I don't know, I feel like in a lot of situations the LR is better, which is fine. Again, that doesn't make a TUR, even with an EZA, like, bad because there's an LR version of them that is better, because on a lot of the teams you can run both of them anyway. But Janemba is very good, but he is now at number 10. At number 9 we have Tech Beerus. I've been very consistent with my placement of Tech Beerus in these EZA lists. I know some people don't agree, and that's fine, but at the end of the day, at least I'm consistent, right? I've always said this Beerus, I don't see what a lot of other people see in him, I guess. Like, he is a unit that he can go slot 1, and he can tank relatively well. A lot of the teams that you would run him on, which, like, it's not difficult to get him on a setup where he has a movie boss, Realm of God, or Exploding Rage character with him, so he's going to have that extra defense and guard, but he's not on a lot of those teams in terms of, like, the best kind of synergy, right? Like, he doesn't share a lot of links with the characters on those teams that he's on, especially, like, he doesn't have big bad bosses. There are certain team builds where you could just throw him in to be a slot 1 unit, but a lot of the big teams that are made up of a lot of movie bosses characters, I mean, Realm of Gods isn't really like a top meta team at the moment, and neither is Exploding Rage, but like with those characters, there are builds of the team that I think are just better without having to have Beerus. So he is a good unit. The other downside for him that I just can't, like, I don't think he should be higher on the list. Like, he doesn't do a lot of damage. He does a relatively good attack stat, but he has no built-in additional. So a lot of the time it's just he does one super at that attack stat and then that's it for the turn, right? Which isn't the end of the world if you're running him as a tank, but he does have the rage mode, which obviously can help as well because it gives you the ability to like negate the enemy super attack, and he can use it twice, which is really good. But obviously remember, it's not something that you choose to use. It just happens when you're at HP 60% or less. So there can be times where you get it when you don't need it or when you don't want it, which can be a waste, which is unfortunate. But again, like just being at number 9, I don't think Beerus is bad, but he's definitely not as good as some of these other characters, in the sense that when I'm building teams, I would say every character above him is a unit that I would throw on a specific team build, like of some of the teams that I'm running in the meta at the moment. Whereas I just find myself like not really ever caring about running this Beerus, right? So he is at number 9. Then we move on to number 8, and that's where we have the new AGL Cell. This guy, I do think he is really good. He obviously gets a lot better as he transforms. It's interesting how they mix around his abilities, though, because like in base, he has the 70% chance to dodge. It's 67% chance to dodge when he's above the 50% HP. And then against one enemy, that's kind of his only defensive mechanic. When he goes into second form, he has guard, and then he has a little bit of damage reduction and a little bit of dodge chance. And then with the, as long as you're above the HP threshold, right, it's about, 34% damage reduction and dodge chance, but he has guard, which is really good. And then when he becomes the perfect cell, he then doesn't have, he has guard, but only for 3 turns. And then he has 35% damage reduction and 70% chance to dodge. He is really, really good. I mean, honestly, I could probably put him higher. I need to play with him and Goku and Gohan a bit more. I've been testing them out against some of the toughest bosses in the game in different runs today. I think the biggest problem with Cell is the teams. And I don't know if, like, maybe he is just getting marked down because I'm so disappointed with the STR Cell. But, like, STR Cell is the team you want to be running this guy on, really. But I don't like STR Cell or his team. This guy, as good as he can be, unless you're going to rely on the 70% chance to dodge, which is only 35% if you're at 50% or less HP, 49% or less, I guess, then he only has 35% chance to dodge. So you can't rely on him to be a slot 1 unit. And it's unfortunate that he's on a team that is desperate for slot 1 units. Like the STR Cell team would be so good if STR Cell was just a monster slot 1 and his revival buff was just fully given, all like no restriction to both the cells when one of them revived, and then they would both just sit in slot 1. This guy could be in one rotation with one of them, and then Tech Cell would be on rotation with the other one, and then straight away you'd have like a very powerful setup. But I do think this guy is very, very good. I mean, post super attack, his defense gets up to a very decent amount, and he has that damage reduction. Hardest hitting bosses in the game will still do damage to him, but he certainly is a solid unit. And again, it just comes down to the UI, like memes all over again. Like a unit with 70% chance to dodge, he could dodge every single attack. Or you get those times where he dodges all the normals that would have done double-digit damage and then gets hit by the final boss, like 6 million damage super attack, right? So I do think Cell is very good. Maybe as we get more teams. The good thing is he's not like restricted to being on a specific team, right? He doesn't have like needs to have Android allies or tournament participant allies or anything like that. So as we get more buffs and more like time travelers or artificial life forms or like power absorption, sworn enemies, like as we get more of these kind of teams, then I think he could be in a better spot. I mean, he's on accelerated battle, so it'd be kind of interesting to run him on like a double Glorio team, and then he could probably be quite interesting. But Cell is definitely very good. But I mean, the next couple of units I put all in the same color tier. So if you wanted to move him up a couple of placements above these next couple of units, I've put them all in the same color anyway. But just above him, I put the Goku and Gohan. Now, I've already seen people debating over which one is better between these two. But I think just because of the fact that the super class teams really dominate the meta at the moment, like this guy's on the Tech Vegeta team and he's on the Physical Gohan Full Power 220 team. He's on a lot of like, you know, Super Saiyans, Pure Saiyans, Goku family. Like he's on a lot of better teams than the Cell. So I think it's a lot easier to run him on some of these teams. And of course, he also is a unit that wants to be in slot 2, at least at the start. And he's on teams that have much better slot 1 options. But yeah, I do really like this EZA. The more I use them, this is why these two are like a bit lower, because I consider them to be kind of similar levels of power. I think maybe by comparing them that much is the reason why maybe I think even now as I'm doing this, Cell might be a little bit low compared to like these guys, because the more I use these guys, the more I keep finding things to nitpick about their kit, right? Because if the unit gets locked in a certain slot, that can really mess up your plans. If the unit comes onto rotation, like say they're not on turn 1, they're on turn 2, or even worse, they're in slot 7, and they come onto rotation and the enemy is almost dead, then Goku does one super attack, kills the boss, and then you don't get to do the extra supers to build up for his condition to exchange into Gohan. And obviously, if he gets locked in slot 1, he doesn't get his dodge chance until he attacks. So even with type advantage, like he only has like 400k defense start of turn on a 220 team. Like mine's Rainbow level 10 links. 300 odd to 400k. It's maybe more if you've got a lot of support on the rotation as well. But that means he can't really handle slot 1. So events that have locking, characters that have AoEs, like bosses, like we've got the Zamasu, there's one of the, is it Bergamo? One of the ones in the Universe Survival Saga. I think it's Tambourine in like the DB Saga Red Zone, like final stage. So any of these events that have AoEs are not going to be ideal for him either. And then once you do get your 3 super attacks off with him, you then have to worry about what turn is best to exchange into Gohan. Because again, if say like Gohan gets locked in slot 2, or say Goku Gohan gets locked in slot 2 and there's no attacks, like that's a fine situation, you're not going to die or anything, but you're not going to want to exchange into Gohan because then you're wasting one of his 2 appearances where he has to take all those hits, where he's not getting attacked. That means you're putting all your eggs in the one basket that on the next turn you're going to be able to put him in front of 5 attacks. And if you can't, it means you can't fully max out his passive. And then once you do get Gohan out, Gohan can be very good, but in certain situations, because he needs to get hit twice, or hit or dodge twice, to get this extra 158% defense and an extra 10% damage reduction. So against a lot of the tougher bosses, if one of the first 2 attacks that he takes is a super, he'll take some pretty big damage. Once he gets hit twice, and then especially once he gets hit the 3rd time, his defense jumps up so much that he's able to tank really, really well. And then, of course, when you get the 5th hit, you get the guaranteed guard, you get the extra damage reduction. The best case scenario is if you can get him hit 5 times in his first turn, because then when he appears on his second turn, he has 88% damage reduction and guard, and he's starting at like 1.4 million defense or something, so he's just perfectly fine from like all attacks. But then, of course, after that, he loses the 3 turn like buff. He has 30% damage reduction. He still has guard. He does get 100% defense on super. So I have seen him still tank some very big hitting super attacks for double digit damage. But in slot 1, with only, let's say, 1.5 million defense and like 30% damage reduction, certain big supers will still do some damage to him. There's not a lot of big boss super attacks that will just straight up one-shot him from full health, which is obviously very good. And of course, if you were using him in slot 2, because he doesn't have a slot 1 restriction, right? Once you've gotten him hit or dodged the certain number of times he needs to, he can just go in slot 2 if you have a better slot 1 tank. He only needs to get hit once to get the permanent attack buff for the rest of the event. So he is really, really good, but I think there are a lot of situations that come up, sometimes even beyond your control. Like if a character gets an extra additional, or they only get an additional normal instead of a super, right? And you end up not killing a boss phase and then going into a phase where like Goku can literally attack once. Or what can be even worse, of course, if you go into a phase with this guy where the enemy's almost dead, but they're attacking like 5 times in slot 1, so you can't put Goku in slot 1 anyway, and the unit that does then have to go in slot 1 to tank those hits is going to kill the boss, and then he doesn't get to attack at all, and he needs to attack 3 times in order to become Gohan. And once you get past 5 turns, he loses a bunch of his like stats and just becomes a lot worse overall. You ideally, once you get to this point, that's when you really want to like be changing into Gohan. So this unit is still very good. I think they're very impressive in the right circumstances, but the more I've been using them in different events, the more like I've noticed that things can go wrong that stop you from being able to get their full potential, which is obviously a little bit annoying. But they are at number 6 here for me. Number 5, we have STR Kid Buu. I still think STR Kid Buu is absolutely fantastic. Like post super, when he's fully built up, he's tanking incredibly well. He can even slot 1 like early enough in some events in order to like get your rotation sorted and everything. He can negate the certain types of supers, the unarmed super, which can be useful for certain events as well. He has the active skill. Certain events, of course, you can use it straight away before he gets hit the 6 times, and then that gives him an even bigger buff. Yeah, I don't think there's not enough. We don't need to go into a huge amount of detail about STR Kid Buu. He's been at a reasonably decent spot on all of the lists that we've done since he got his EZA. I think he's really, really good. I think he's maintained a level of like usability on a lot of these teams. I would still throw him on teams now as another Big Bad Bosses unit that can take hits and hit relatively hard. I still think STR Kid Buu is very, very good. So he is here at number 6. So then we have the top 5. So it was these guys, right? These 4. I put all of these guys in the same color tier. So if you're someone who does really value Beerus' slot 1 and you think that makes him better than any of these 3, then that's fine. If you think that maybe I am underrating Cell a little bit and he's better than these guys, maybe even better than you, I could see him going up to as high as number 6 as well. But then we move into a separate tier when we get to number 5, which is the GT Super Saiyan Goku. Now, I think this guy is situational. I suppose I could even include him in the green tier, maybe, because on certain builds, like if you don't have any GT heroes or giant 8 power characters, then he's losing out on the defensive side of the card, which makes him significantly worse. It's why the Vegeta, I think, is much better than this guy, because if Vegeta doesn't have these allies, he loses out on attack power, which isn't as important in a lot of situations, whereas Goku loses out on defensive capability, which could then end up with you losing the event, right? But Goku is very good on the setup that he needs. He looks really good. We're going to be getting more buffs for Giant 8 power, obviously with the new Daima Super Saiyan 4, Int Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta EZA. Like, this guy's definitely still very good. And even on teams without these allies, he's still good. He's just not as good and not as dominant, right? So I've got him at number 5. I honestly could see in some cases the argument to put Kid Buu over him as well, but I think it depends. And then at number 4, I have the Gogeta, STR Gogeta Super EZA. Again, like I said with Beerus, I'm consistent when it comes to how much I value this guy. I think people massively underrate him. I think people look at what he does, maybe just on paper, and don't understand that, like, fully built up post super attack, he can tank like 5 million damage hits, while the fact that he's also doing a decent amount of damage, lowering attack in events that can be attack lowered. And then he's providing all allies with 2 key and 40% attack, which is a pretty significant buff to the allies. Now, when there's an extreme class enemy is when he has guaranteed guard and that little bit of extra defense. When there's a super class enemy, obviously he's not as good. And we have gotten some more fights now with super class bosses, but we're still getting a lot of fights with extreme bosses. And even when he only has the chance to guard, it's still a great chance. And with the new UI, the way it works, you can see on the turn if he is guarding that turn or not, which then obviously allows you to sort of make the decision within that rotation where you want to put him, whether it's like slot 2 or 3. But yeah, I still think he's really good. I think he is he makes the cut for a lot of good teams. I think he's a very solid unit. I think he is better than Goku because Goku has this restriction. Like, Goku on a full GT Heroes or Giant 8 power team potentially is better, but I find it a lot harder to run that kind of setup in the current meta. Whereas Gogeta is really, really good. And then above him at number 3 is the GT Vegeta. Because I think GT Vegeta, losing out on the attack is just nowhere near as important. So I think he is significantly better than the Goku. And the funny thing is, he can hit harder than the Goku in a lot of situations anyway. So he's very, very good. Again, I put these three in the same color tier. So if you think even with the restriction for Goku, he's better than Gogeta, I don't really see an argument. I wouldn't argue against that too much. Like, I put these three in the same tier. I just think there's enough of a gap between Vegeta and Goku that we can fit Gogeta, like, in that gap. But obviously, let me know what you think. And then when it comes to number 2 and number 1, I've changed the color slightly because I did have Cell at number 2 in the same color tier as these three, and then Buuhan at number 1 in his own tier. But I have now changed Cell's tier so that these two are the same color. Like, essentially, if you want to argue either of these guys at number 1, I could see the arguments for it, especially with Tech Cell now having the 220 lead with the new Cell team. This guy can look like an absolute beast. The reason why I put him at number 2 still, even though I am making that caveat that they could be interchangeable, the reason why I think this guy's still number 2 is when we've been using the Cell team and trying Cell out in new events like the new STR one and the AGL EZA one, this guy's obviously been on the team. And one thing that I think is really noticeable when it comes to like damage output, and something that can be very useful, the fact that he heals on super, is he has the additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super, whereas Buuhan literally just launches an additional super. So Buuhan will always super twice, whereas sometimes Cell will super once and then do an additional normal, which isn't the end of the world, but obviously significantly better if you're getting the guaranteed additional. Cell does also have the capability to slot 1 in some situations as long as you're against a super class enemy, so he gets that extra bit of damage reduction. They're both changing orbs, they're both supporting. Like, I've said this in the previous lists and I'll say it again, like, these two's Super EZA, they are very, very similar. There are only minor differences, which is why even when, and I guess even now, I still think that Buuhan is the better one. It doesn't make any sense to put Cell any lower than 2 because they are so similar. And now that Cell has that massive buff from being on the new 220 team, I think it's even more arguable that like either of them is just number 1. So I think that's how I'm still going to put Buuhan at number 1, but I can see the arguments for Cell being number 1. If we take a look at the actual zoomed out list here, so we can see in the reverse order, we have Janemba at number 10 in his own sort of unique tier there. Then we have Beerus at 9, AGL Cell at 8, STR Goku and Gohan at 7, and Kid Buu at 6. But they are all in the same color tier. So I think, like I said, even when recording this and talking about the units, I could probably see the arguments for putting AGL Cell above Goku and Gohan and maybe even above Kid Buu as well. But they're all in the same color tier. So like I said, if you think any of the green ones are the better one of the 4, then that's perfectly fine, right? I wouldn't have a huge argument against that. Then at 5 we have GT Goku, 4 STR Gogeta, and 3 Int Vegeta. Again, they're all in the same color tier, so if you want to shuffle them around, I think you can. But I do think there are the arguments that they are better than the ones in the tier below them. And then at number 2 we have Tech Cell, and number 1 we have Int Buuhan, but they are in the same color tier as well. So either one at number 1 or 2 I think is perfectly fine. So there you go. That is the list 1 to 10. In fact, like I say, I think after going over it in the video, I think maybe we could probably do that. Again, it's a Big Bad Boss's character. Does he have, let me double check. If we go back, he has Big Bad Bosses right from like Form 1, right? Yeah, so it's not like Buu has that advantage over him all the time. Man, I feel like I'm happy with that. I still think I could argue this either way, like Kid Buu over Cell, but we'll put Cell at number 6 for now. So we've changed it up a little bit here right at the end, but let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What is your top 10 EZA list looking like? If you would move these around. If you think the tiers themselves, like I said, you can interchange units within the tiers, but if you think any of those are mismatched as well, do let me know why down below in the comment section. Always happy to reply to people that have feedback on these lists, whether they're criticisms or not, as long as you're actually providing like reasons why you think these units don't go where they should on my list. Like, it's always the most annoying thing, right, when people just say, like, when, especially with the STR Cell discourse that we've had lately, is I think that like Slug, for example, is better than STR Cell in every way, and then when someone comments on the tier list just saying Cell is better than Slug, it's like, okay, well, I've already told you that I don't think he is, and I've said why. So unless you're giving me a reason to like why, well, I don't know, I'm not going to change my mind just because you say that Cell's better. But yeah, let me know what you guys think and give me good reasons. I know a lot of you do, but it's just always with a tier list, there will always be people that skip to the end and just look at the 1 to 10 and then comment, oh, this guy shouldn't be this high, and then that's it. But you know, those of you who put the interesting comments, we have the discussions in the comment section. I appreciate you guys. But like I say, do let me know your thoughts. Let me know your personal top 10. Let me know all of that down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.